2022. Last videos I've done is my top 10 worst and my top 10 most disappointing movies of the year. Now, with disappointing, now it's time for the exact opposite. These are the movies that I wasn't anticipated for, but it turned out better than I thought it was going to be. These are my 10 most surprising movies of the year. Now, before I get into this list, not every of these movies are great movies. Some of these movies do have flaws, but these are just the movies that I wasn't anticipated for, but they actually turned out better than I thought it was going to be. These movies are at least fun movies. These movies are at least enjoyable movies. But these movies on the list are the movies that actually surprised me. Movies that I wasn't expecting to be as good as they are. So, of course, another top 10 end of year list. 3 down, 1 to go. Let's get into it. So, let's start off with my number 10 with Scream. Now, when it comes to the Scream franchise, I'm not the hugest Scream fan. Like, I love the first 2 movies, but 3 and 4, yeah, was not a big fan. So, of course, I was not pumped for this movie because of what I thought of the 3rd and 4th one. But this movie actually turns out as a fun movie that brings back of what I loved about the first 2 Scream movies. Like, this movie is a horror film, but it's also a film that kind of spoofs other horror films, and this movie does fool me a lot of times with the jump scares, and I thought this movie is cleverly well done. I thought the new characters are good in this movie. They didn't annoy me at all or made me forget about them. I think Jenna Ortega is fantastic in this movie. Ghostface, when you see him, it's awesome to see. And what's surprising about this movie also is that this movie is brutal. This is the most brutal I have seen in the Scream franchise. And after this movie, I'm excited to see what Scream does in New York, because of course it's Scream Takes Manhattan coming out next year. It should have been called that, not Scream 6. So, excited to see what Scream 6 brings us, because Scream 5, definitely a surprise for me. Now, there's going to be also movies on this list, or movies that critics didn't like, but I honestly enjoyed them. Take Black Adam, for example. Critics did not like this movie. I was excited for this movie, and this movie absolutely exceeded my expectations. This movie is not a perfect movie by any other means. I think the villain was crap. This movie took a little while to get going, but this movie is just a fun freaking movie, and I think it is better than the recent MCU films. I would say DC is doing pretty good this year, even though DC has gone through some troubling now since now James Gunn is taking over. I think Dwayne Johnson does a terrific job as Black Adam. This is definitely the role that he wanted to do for a long time, and he absolutely deserved that role. I think he was great in the movie. The Justice Society of America, all those characters, I thought they were awesome, especially Dr. Fate and Hawkman. Those characters are awesome. This movie is a non-stop action movie that is just entertaining from start to finish, and I'm really surprised that people didn't really like this movie as much. And I know, it's not original, it's another comic book film, but sometimes we need to have a bit of fun with these movies once in a while, and Black Adam definitely did that for me. Now, coming into my number 8 is Jackass Forever. I was not pumped for this movie because of Action Point. Remember Action Point, another Johnny Knoxville film that tries to be like Jackass, but it failed at its own hands? I was worried that this movie is going to be like that, but no. This is Jackass. This is the Jackass that we know and love, with the actors getting old, but they're still doing freaking crazy stunts. But also the new characters, surprisingly, are great as well. And this is definitely one of the most fun theater experiences I had in a while. The audiences were having a blast with the movie, including myself and my friends. This is definitely a hangout movie. The stunts, holy crap. The stunts in this movie are just next level shit. They're insane. They're surprisingly brutal. Like, there are some brutal stunts in this movie where I'm like, holy shit. Like, this one involving a pogo stick. That's all I gotta say. This one involving a pogo stick. But this movie was just a blast for me. It definitely represents what Jackass is all about. I'm definitely going to miss Johnny Knoxville, Steve-O, and the rest of the old Jackass crew. If you don't like Jackass, this film wouldn't make any difference, but if you're fans of Jackass, this movie will serve you justice. Man, Sonic the Hedgehog 2. Wow, this is the Sonic the Hedgehog movie that I wanted. Like, the first movie was okay, and I wasn't really too anticipated for this movie, even though we have Knuckles and Tails in this movie. I don't know what to think of this movie until I watch this movie. This is a Sonic film. This is a Sonic the Hedgehog film that pays homage to the games, and it's a love letter to the media of Sonic the Hedgehog. Knuckles, Idris Elba was great in the film. Tails is great. Jim Carrey, for his last film, I thought he does a terrific job in the film for his last film. But this movie surprisingly has more heart than the first movie, and this movie definitely pays homage so well with the Sonic games, and I thought Sonic the Hedgehog 2 did that really well. So yes, this is a sequel that's better than the first movie. This is the Sonic movie that I wanted to see, and the action scenes, holy crap, especially with the final act, when Sonic turns into Super Sonic, I was literally cheering. This is the movie for Sonic fans. So yeah, what a surprise, a sequel that's better than the original, and the Sonic movie that I wanted to see just came to me. Now, this is the thing, I was excited for this movie, but there are some things in this movie that I wasn't expecting that actually really surprised me. Take Violent Night, for example. I was honestly expecting this movie to just be Santa Claus kicking ass, which is what I wanted to see, and it gave me that. But what surprised me about Violent Night is that this movie has a lot of heart. Like, this movie has emotional scenes than I thought it was going to have. Especially with the backstory surrounding David Harbour's Santa Claus. Wow, I was not expecting that. This movie is much more better than I was expecting. But still, Violent Night is a badass movie with Santa Claus kicking ass. This movie is brutal. But what's good about this film as well is also a Christmas movie. It tells a true meaning about Christmas with some blood and gore. This is definitely another Christmas movie that I will definitely watch every year. Seriously, Violent Night, it's better than I thought it was going to be. I thought it was just going to be just Santa kicking ass. It's just that one-dimensional. But no, this movie has more than that. It has a good villain. It has heart. And this little girl in the film, I didn't find her annoying. I find her the most adorable little girls I've ever seen in a film in a while. Alright, up to my top 5, the movies that I was not too anticipating for, but it turns out better than I thought it was going to be. So my number 5, man, Michael Bay. He did prove for me. Ambulance. I'm not a Michael Bay fan. The Transformers movies, even though they're guilty pleasures, they're not good movies. Well, I'd say the first one's pretty good, but the rest, no. But Michael Bay, you just know what type of film he is doing, and it has that in the film. But man, this is something that I wanted to see in a Michael Bay film for a very long time. It goes back to the older Michael Bay films, you know, Bad Boys, Armageddon, you know, all that stuff. It brings back the fun with it. Not just Transformers movies, they just bring one thing at a time, and it just gets really annoying once in a while. Ambulance is just a fun thriller movie. Jake Gyllenhaal, great in the film. I just forgot the other actor's name. The guy from Aquaman, he is great in the film as well. Isa Gonzalez, attractive as hell. But this is a Michael Bay film that does not feel like a typical Michael Bay film. Yes, it has the American flag. Yes, it has explosions. But surprisingly, it's used at the right time. And even the filmmaking in the film, the drone shots, some people could be mixed by that. I thought it adds a cool effect to the film. This is definitely a fun car chase thrill ride. It's sort of like Speed with Ocean's 11 in a way, and I think Ambulance is definitely a blast, and I was not expecting to like the film because I'm not a Michael Bay fan, but man, Ambulance, this is definitely one of the better Michael Bay films that came out in a while. Now, another film that a lot of people were very mixed on, but I personally enjoy, Lightyear. Now, I know that this movie has a lot of nitpicks. It does have a lot of nitpicks for me. I think Zurg, they didn't do him well. But this movie, honestly, if I was Andy, I feel like that's how I would picture a Buzz Lightyear film. First of all, Chris Evans, I thought he does a great job as Buzz Lightyear. Of course, not as good as Tim Allen. But you know, Chris Evans tries, and I thought he did a pretty good job in the film. But the animation in this film looks fantastic. There's a lot of awesome looking animated action scenes where I'm like, man, this film is probably one of the most underrated Pixar films I have seen. And even the other characters played by Keke Palmer and Taika Waititi, I enjoyed those characters. They're basically simple and safe, and I didn't mind those characters at all. This is a fun space adventure film that I think it looks great on Blu-ray, even on Disney Plus with the IMAX ratio. It's not the best Pixar film I've ever seen, and it could have been better, honestly, because Zurg as the villain. I didn't like what they did with Zurg. That's the only thing I didn't like about the movie. But I like this movie. I get why people didn't like the movie. It's very nitpicky. But this is what this list is about as well. Movies that I honestly didn't mind that people hate. That's what surprise movies are for me, because I'm surprised that people didn't like the film, but I personally enjoyed it. Now, when I saw the trailers of the film, I didn't know what to think. But man, this movie was a total blast, surprisingly. Bullet Train, yes, I didn't like the trailers. I thought the trailers were a bit annoying in my opinion. But thank God, the movie was awesome. I actually like the movie more and more times I've seen it. This kind of has the mixture with Guy Ritchie and Quentin Tarantino, and I think Bullet Train did those elements really well. And the action scenes, man, there are some fun freaking action scenes in this film that got me on the edge of my seat. But absolutely, this is one of the best comedies of the year. I was cracking up laughing throughout so many elements of the film. Brad Pitt was great in the film, Aaron Taylor-Johnson is really good in the movie, Joey King is great in the movie, even the cameos in the film, it is really well done. And it makes sense, you know, the director of Hobbs and Shaw did this film, and that film was a fun freaking movie. So, Bullet Train, I'm surprised that this movie is more fun than I was expecting. Now, number 2, another movie that I didn't review on this channel, but there are some movies that I just couldn't be bothered reviewing, not in a bad way because of all the things I'm doing, so I decided, let's just put some on this list. This is the movie I was not pumped for. When I saw the trailers, I'm like, really? They're making another one of these movies? Man! This movie was a fun freaking time. Matilda the musical, yes, I was not excited for this film because I'm not a huge Matilda fan. Like, I didn't mind the original film, it was fine, but I did see the musical that this movie is based on, and the musical was actually fun, but I was worried that this movie is not going to have that exact same charm that the musical have. My god, this is not just better than the musical, but I would say it's better than the original film. I thought the little girl who played Matilda was wonderful in the film. I thought what they did with Miss Honey was better, and Miss Trunchbull, Emma Thompson, frickin' nails it in the film. But I think what really stands out with this film is the music. Oh my god, these kids, the choreography of this film is fantastic. When the kids are dancing, you can tell they're hardly trained for this film, and it just pays off. These kids can frickin' dance. And there are so many great musical sequences in this film that I was surprised that it turns out better than I thought it was going to be. Probably better than the musical did. This movie is definitely the love letter to the musical, and even Roald Dahl's book in general. And I gotta give Matilda the musical so much praise than it actually is. And it makes me really interested now in Timothée Chalamet's Willy Wonka prequel. Let's hope that movie's good, because Matilda the musical is definitely one of the better Roald Dahl adaptations since Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. Alright, my number 1, the movie that surprised me the most this year. This movie could appear on everyone's top 10 best list, but I gotta say, it's hard for me, because I was either choosing between this movie to be on my surprising or in my best, but this is the movie that I wasn't excited for the most, and this movie turned out fantastic, so I decided, that's the point of my surprising list, let's put this movie my number 1 instead of my best. This movie, I was not pumped for from the trailers because this franchise is very mixed. And the last movie was terrible. I hated the last movie, and I was excited for the last movie. So I just kept my expectations low with this film just in case. Thank freaking Christ this movie is great. Prey. I think Prey is one of the best Predator movies that I have seen since the first movie. We finally got another great Predator movie, and that is a surprise. Because after the first Predator movie, the other movies, they've just gone less and less and less good. And now Prey is just like a step up. This is a great prequel to the first Predator movie, but it gives us what we loved about the first Predator movie. It pays homage to it. I love the 10,000 BC twist into it throughout this prequel. The main chick in the film, she is great. She is a great character in this film. And the new Predator, he looks badass. I love the weaponry this Predator has, and they made this Predator terrifying, which is what the first one did well, and the other movies didn't. They didn't make Predator terrifying. This movie, it did it really well. The director of 10 Cloverfield Lane directed this movie. Love 10 Cloverfield Lane. Another great movie from this director. Man, Prey was a surprise movie because I was not expecting this movie to be good, because after The Predator, I just lost faith in the Predator franchise. Now, this movie gave me faith, and that's what I call the surprise of 2022. This movie is brutal, the action is freaking great, the cinematography even is fantastic. This is what we needed for a new Predator movie, and hopefully they explore it more in the next movies. Hopefully the new Predator movie becomes what Prey does. Guys, Prey absolutely surprised me the most in 2022. Absolutely, this is my number 1 most surprising films of 2022. So guys, those are my top 10 most surprising movies of 2022. Now, of course, the next video is the biggest one out of them all. My favorite movies of 2022. We all waited for this. These 3 top 10 lists built up to it now. It's going to come soon. I am so excited to do that list, so let's get these negativities and surprising out of the way to get to those big lists. So of course, my favourite movies of the year is coming very, very soon. So thank you guys so much for watching, and let me know in comments below what are your surprising movies of the year. Make sure you guys follow me on social media links down below: Facebook, Stardust, Instagram, Twitter, and Letterboxd. Keep contact with me, and make sure you guys subscribe to my channel, notify for my latest movie reviews and other movie related content. Thank you guys so much for watching, and have a nice day.